2, Scene 1. June, 3 years later. The living room of the Foxes, now David's house. A farmhouse room, but brightly done over. Solid door to outside at right. In the back wall, right, a swinging door to the dining room. A stairway at the back, its landing at the left. A door leading to an office in the bedroom, down left. One window at left. Two windows flanking the door to outside at right. Good blue rug. Odd pieces. Some new, some old. Oak. A pair of well-used rubber boots beside the door. The stage is empty. A perfect summer day. Not too hot. Noon. After a moment, the doorbell rings. Hester, from above, shouts excitedly, "They're here, Davy!" David, hurrying down the stairs, buttoning on a white shirt. He wears pressed pants, shined shoes. His hair has just been combed. Shouting up, "I'll get it! I'm going!" Hester, her head sticking out at the junction of banister and ceiling. She quickly surveys the room as David comes off the stairs. Get your boots out of here! Get your boots out of there! Just fix up the house." The bell rings. David, calling toward the door, "Just a minute!" Getting the boots together. To Hester, "Go on, get dressed. It's almost noon." He opens the door to dining room. Hester, "Don't put them in there. They're filthy. Down the cellar." David, "But I always put them in here." Hester, "But you promised once the house is painted." Door opens. Enter Gus. Gus, "Don't bother. It's only me." He wears a white Palm Beach suit, hatless. Hester and David stare at him in astonishment. She comes down the stairs. She is dressed in a robe, but has her best shoes on. Her hair is set. Hester, "Why, Gus, you look so handsome." Gus, "It is such a special day, I decided to make an impression on myself." Hester, "No, you go perfectly with the room." David, laughing with Gus, "Watch yourself or she'll hang over the couch." He stamps at her to get her moving. Hester, squealing. She runs to the stairs and up a few steps and leans over the banister. "Is your girl outside? Bring her in." David, "Hey, that's right. Where's your girl?" Gus, looking up. "Well, we both decided suddenly that until she can become as beautiful as Hester." Hester, "Oh, you." Gus, opening his arms like a pleading lover. "Until she shows ability to make over a house like this was, and until etc. and etc. She is not the girl for me. So I haven't seen her all week. Anyway, I've decided definitely I need only a red-headed girl." Hester to Gus, "Stand in the middle of the room when they come in. You make it look just like the picture in the Ladies' Home Journal." David, starting after her, "Get dressed, will ya? Dad'll cut my head off if we're not ready." Hester laughs with delight and runs upstairs. Gus, looking around. "You know, this house shines in the sun a quarter of a mile away." David, "Well, look at that sun." Goes right to windows. "God must have pulled up the sun this morning, grabbed him by the back of the neck and said, 'Make it a baseball day.'" Gus, touching the wall. "Now it is truly a place to call home. Amazing." David laughs musingly, indicating the windows at the right. "You know, when I came down this morning, that window caught my eye. In here to watch Hester doing her homework. And then I used to sneak away. And now I can walk in and out of this house 50 times a day and sleep up in his room night after night." Looks through the window. "Wherever he is, I bet he still can't figure it out. Read the encyclopedia if you like. I'll put on a tie." Goes to the landing. Gus, looking around. "Encyclopedia, furniture, new plumbing. When am I going to see a couple of brats around here?" David stops at the landing. "What's the rush? You got some old suits you want ruined?" Gus, me? I always pick up babies by the back of the neck, but idly. Without children, you wouldn't have to fix nothing here for 20 years. When nothing breaks, it's boring. He sits, reaches over for an encyclopedia volume. David glances above, comes away from the stairs, quietly. Um, I've been wanting to ask you about that. Gus. What? David hesitates, in good humor. Did you ever hear of it happening when people didn't have kids because of the man? Gus. Certainly, why not? Why don't you talk it over with her? David laughs self-consciously. I can't seem to get around to it. I mean, we somehow always took it for granted, kinda. That when the time was right, a kid would just naturally come along. Gus. You go to the doctor, then you'll know. Or do you want to know? David. Sure I do. But I don't know, it just doesn't seem right. Especially when we've been all set financially for over 2 years now. Gus. Right. What has this got to do with right or wrong? There is no justice in the world. David looks at him, then goes to the landing. Stops. I'll never believe that, Gus. If one way or another a man don't receive according to what he deserves inside, well, it's a madhouse. Hester from above. There's a car stopping in front of the house. Coming down. Did you put your boots away? David, slightly annoyed. Yeah, I put them away. Goes across to the door. Hester hurrying downstairs. You didn't. Hurrying across the room towards the boots. He'll have the place like a pigsty in a week. David opens the door and looks out. Gus to Hester. Get used to it. The place will never be so neat once you have children around. David turns to him, quickly, resentment in his face. Hester stops moving. An eager glow lights up her expression. The boots are in her hand. Don't you think it is a wonderful house for children? David. Hello! Hello, Mr. Dibble. Didn't expect to see you around here today. Come in, come in. Enter Dan Dibble, after wiping his feet carefully on the doormat. Dibble. Had to see JB on some business. Thought I'd stop in, say hello. Afternoon, Mrs. Beeves. Hester. Hello, Mr. Dibble. She picks up the boots and goes out. David. You know Gus Eberson. He's with me over at the shop. Dibble. Sure, how are you, Gus? Say, you look more like a banker than a mechanic. David. Best mechanic there is. Dibble. What I always say, never judge a man by his clothes. A man and his clothes are soon parted. They laugh. JB was telling me you used to have a shop of your own here in town. Over in Poplar Street, was it? David. We amalgamated, Gus and I. Gus. Actually, Mr. Dibble, I ran out of money and customers after the first 7 months. I'm working now for Mr. Beeves since over 2 years. Dibble. Well, this is the first time I knew a hired man to insist he wasn't the boss's partner and the boss to let on he was. Gus chuckles. Mr. Beeves suffers sometimes from an overdeveloped sense of responsibility. Dibble. That's why I spotted him as a natural make-man. Given it any more thought, David? David. A lot, Mr. Dibble. A lot, but I'm afraid I haven't got an answer for you yet. Dibble. Got time for a few facts today? David. Tell you the truth, we're expecting JB and Shorey. Going up to Burley for the ball game. You heard about my brother, didn't you? Dibble. JB said something about him pitching against that colored team. Say, if he can knock them boys over, he really belongs in the big leagues. David. I guess after today's game, Amos Beeves will be playing for the Detroit Tigers. Dibble. Well, they really took him, eh? David. Just about. A Tiger Scout's going to be in the grandstand today. Dibble. Well, it's about time. David. Yep. Things even up. I guess in the long run. Why don't you drop around tonight? Having a big barbecue after the game. Enter Hester from the dining room. Dibble. Thanks. I'd like to, but I gotta get back and see my mink get fed on time and proper. Hester. David just never stops talking about mink. Sits. Have you still got that tiny one with a white spot on his head? David, seeing Hester's interest, kindles a happy liveliness in him. Oh, that one's probably been in and out a dozen of New York nightclubs by this time. They laugh. Hester, disturbed, to Dibble. Oh, you didn't kill her? David, to Gus and Hester. That's the way you get about mink. They're like people. Little nervous people. Dibble. I call them my little bankers myself. Pour $1 worth of feed down their gullets and they'll return you 40%. Best little bankers in the world. David. Except when they fall, Mr. Dibble. Except when they fall. Dibble. Mink never fall. David. Oh, no, Mr. Dibble. Dibble. They don't. It's their keepers fall down on them. When a feller goes broke trying to raise mink, it's mainly because he's a careless man. From everything I've seen, David, you ain't that kind. You got a farm here clean as a hospital, and mink needs a clean place. You're the first and only man I thought of when I decided to sell off some of my breeders when my doctor told me to ease up. David. I've been asking around lately, and everybody I talked to... Dibble, to Gus too. I'm glad you made the inquiries. It shows you're a careful man. And now I'll tell you my answer. Easiest thing in the world is to kill a mink. Mink will die of a cold drought, they'll die of heart failure, indigestion can kill them, a cut lip, a bad tooth, or sex trouble. And worse than that, the mink is a temperamental old woman. I wear an old brown canvas coat when I work around them. If I change that coat, it might start them to eating their young. A big loud noise like thunder or even a heavy hailstorm comes, and the mother's liable to pick up the litter, put him out in the open part of the cage, and then she'll go back into the nest box and close her eyes. As though they're out of danger if they're out of her sight. And when the storm's over, you might have 6 or 8 kits drowned to death out there. I've seen mink murder each other. I've seen them eat themselves to death and starve themselves to death. And I've seen them die of just plain worry. But not on my ranch. I'll show my records to anybody. David to Gus. There's a business, boy. Gus, a business? That's a slot machine. What do you need with mink? David. Oh, there's a kick in it, Gus. When you send a load of skins to New York, you know you did something. Gus. Why, you didn't do something? Indicates right. A great big shop you built up, a tractor station. How nice you made this farm. David. Not too intensely, he enjoys this talk. Yeah, but is the thing really yours because your name is on it? Don't you have to feel you're smart enough or strong enough or something enough to have won it before it's really yours? You can't bluff a mink into staying alive. Turns to Dibble. I tell you, Mr. Dibble. Dibble, take your time. Think about it. David. Let me call you, I'll let you know. Dibble. Oh, I'll bide my time. Just remember, in New York they murder people for a mink coat. Women sell their jewels for mink. Them New York women will sell damn near anything for mink. They laugh as horns of 2 cars sound urgently outside. David to Dibble. This is my brother, Gus. As David opens the door, look, like 2 peacocks. Hester, at the door, over her shoulder, ecstatically to Dibble. They've waited so long. David, exuberantly backing from the door. Here he comes! Christy Mathewson the second. Enter Amos and Patterson, followed by J.B. Hester, grabbing Amos's hand. How's your arm, Aim? Amos winds up and pitches. Wham! He's out! Pat, throwing up his arms. God bless this day. Suddenly. I'm not waiting for anybody. Threatens to go out again. J.B. to Hester. Sure, he's waiting in the car. Let's go. Hester, bring him in. Let's have a drink. Nobody hears her. David. What are you looking so sad about, Dad? Suddenly hugs Pat. Hester. Get some whiskey, Dave. Pat. Indignantly. He has broken from Dave. You want to suffocate in here? Open the windows in this house. He rushes around, throwing windows up. David, laughing. We're going in a minute. Where's the telegram, Aim? Amos opens his mouth, but Pat cuts him off. Pat, busy with the windows. Let the day come in. What a day. What a year. What a nation. Hester, rushing after Pat. Did you bring the telegram? She corners him, laughing. Where's the telegram? Pat, I don't need to bring it. I will never forget that telegram so long as I live. Takes it out of his pocket. Western Union, class of service. This is a full-rate telegram or cablegram unless its deferred character is indicated by a suitable symbol. Hester, what are you reading that part for? Tries to grab it from him. What did the scout say? Pat, grabbing it back. I'm reading it to you just the way I read it when I got it, from the very top to the very bottom. David, let him read it, Hess. They go quiet. Pat. I haven't felt this way since the last time I read the Bible. Patterson Beeves, 26 Murdoch Street, will be in Burley for the Black Giants game Sunday, July 16th. Looking forward to seeing Amos Beavis's performance. Best regards, Augie Belfast, Detroit Tigers. Looks around imperiously. 21 years I have been waiting for this telegram. Training him down the cellar since he was old enough to walk. People laughed when Amos got bad marks in school. Forget the homework, I said. Keep your eye on the ball. Concentration, I said. JB, touched and fearing Pat's continuing indefinitely. For God's sake, let's all have a drink. David, coming up. Goes outdoor. Hester, pointing outside. To JB. I'll bring Ellie in. Why don't you come to the game with us, Mr. Dibble? She starts across to the door. JB, a little embarrassed, stops. Hester. Better leave her, baby. You know how she is about alcohol. Let's not start anything. Gus. Shorey likes a drink. I'll bring him in. He goes out left. Pat. Plenty of room in Dave's car, Mr. Dibble. He studies Dibble, automatically massaging Amos's arm. JB holds his hand out to Hester. What do you think of this? Hester. A wedding ring! You're giving Ellie a new ring? Jamie, warmly. No, this is for me. Since we decided to adopt a baby, I've been feeling like we're newlyweds. Hester flings her arms around him. You're such a silly man. Enter Shorey, pushed in by Gus. Shorey to JB. Hey, Papa, don't start nothing you can't finish. Enter David with drinks on a tray. Hester, 3/4 joking, but only that much, to Shorey. You've got a filthy mind. Shorey. Madam, don't flatter me. To David, who has been watching Hester since Shorey came in. Hey, husband, where's that drink? David, come on, everybody, before we go. Gives out the drinks, raises his glass. A toast. To everybody's luck. Everybody's. All raise their glasses. Gus to Amos, and the next World Series starts to drink. David, wait! Make one big toast to all our heart's desires. For Amos. For Dad. Gus to David and Hester. To their prosperity, their shop, their tractor station, their farm. Dibble, suddenly struck with the idea. And their mate. Hester, a quick complaint. No. David, he looks at Hester. Her face softens toward him. Not the mate now. From today on, everything is coming true. To our children. Gus, to their children. JB, their children. Hester, softly. And in this year, say that. David. Their eyes meet for an instant and hold. In this year, everything our hearts desire, all of us, in this year, all drink. Pat looks at watch. Hey, we're late. We're getting drunk and the whole world is waiting for us out there. Come on. They all rush out, yelling and laughing as... Curtain. Scene 2. Living room. About 7 o'clock that night. The stage is empty. The gentle murmur and occasional laughter of the guests at the barbecue can be heard dimly. Presently, David, followed by Dan Dibble, comes in through the front door. David crosses to the desk and removes a large checkbook. He pauses over it, pen in hand. David. It's a fortune. I never wrote a check this big in my life. Dibble. You never got so much for so little, David. You'll have prize stock, the finest breeding mink alive. The rest's up to you. David. Mr. Dibble, I never thought I'd see my hand shaking. The door at lower left opens and Pat appears. He closes the door gently behind him. David. Still asleep? Pat. Shh. I always make him take a long nap after a game. David. Aren't you gonna eat anything? Pat. I couldn't eat anything now. I'll eat after Belfast gets here. He sits on the couch. I was watching Amos just now, asleep on the couch, and it suddenly struck me. Did you ever notice what a powerful face he has? David, as he writes check. He's great. After that game today, there ain't a man in the world who can doubt it. He's just great. Pat. Didn't he look noble out there? David. Noble enough to vote for. David, as he tears out check. Here's your check, Mr. Dibble. Dibble takes it. Dibble. You'll never regret it, David. David. I hope not. Dibble. Well, I'll be running along now. You call me as soon as you get your cages ready and I'll bring them over. David has walked him to the front door. Good night. David. Good night. Dibble exits. David turns back into the room. Pat. You know why I'm extra glad? I think you were beginning. I was going to have a talk with you because I never had a doubt he'd scale the heights. David. I just didn't like the idea of me getting everything so steady and him waiting around like... I mean, you get to wondering if your own turn isn't coming. Pat. Like, what do you mean? David. A loss. A big unhappiness of some kind. But he's on his way now. I know it, Pop. The door opens and JB enters with a grand new valise. He is slightly drunk. In one hand, he has a slip of paper. JB. Surprise! Pat springs up with a finger to his lips. Pat. Shh! JB whispers. Surprise! Wake him up. Pointing to valise. Surprise! Pat, after a game, he's got to sleep an hour or he's peevish. Pointing at watch. Wait a few minutes. David, wait till he sees the initials. Pat, violently. Shh! To JB, threatening. If he's peevish. The door opens and Amos stands in the doorway. JB. Hey, Amos. Holding up valise. Surprise! Amos. Aww. Amos takes the valise and fingers it happily. JB. It's a token of our affection from... just a minute now. Straightens the slip of paper. Hester, Shorey, Gus, Dave, Ellie, and me. And Belle. Indicating upstage. Amos. Fondling the valise. Oh, gee, you shouldn't have done it. JB with growing flourish and sentiment. No, you don't realize the traveling you'll do. Looks into the distance. Shibe Park, Comiskey Field, Sportsman's Park, Boston, Chicago, Cleveland, St. Louis. And when you're packing up after a nice no-hitter, you'll give us a thought in the old hometown. To clinch it, he taps a buckle. Solid brass. Amos, feverish in glory. Give me that list. Takes it out of JB's hand. When I get my first paycheck, I'm going to send you all a big present. Say. Starting to take Pat's wrist to look at his watch. What time? Pat, holding on to his arm. You heard what he said in the locker room. He's got to finish some long-distance phoning, and then he'll be here. Come on, I'll rub you down. Hester enters as they start for the stairs. Hester. John, you better go outside. Ellie's going home. JB, frightened and hurt. Why? To all. Am I so drunk? David, hurry up. Maybe you can catch her. JB, come with me, Dave. Tell her, David, get washed, Aim. You want to look nice now. Be right back. David and JB go out. Hester looking at the door. Why must he always do that? To Pat, who is rummaging in his old valise. I'll get you some towels. Come on up. Pat, oh no, we carry our own. You never can tell about strange towels. He folds one over his arm. Amos is looking out of the window. Hester, ready to laugh. Well, I wasn't going to give you a dirty towel, you stupid. Pat, for 21 years, I've kept him practically sterilized. I ain't laying him low with an infection now. Come on, Amos, get washed. Amos and Pat exit up the stairs as JB enters, followed by David. JB is drunk, unsteady, but not staggering. He barges in, comes directly to Hester and takes her hand, speaks very close to her face as though to discern her reactions better. JB, Hester, you gotta go home for me. He goes to window helplessly. David, and maybe she was only fooling, John. JB, no! But, to Hester, somebody's gotta go home for me. And suddenly he bursts into uncontrollable sobbings. Hester, what in the world? David angrily, John! Shakes him, then seats him. John, are you gonna cut that out? Hester, going to JB. What happened? What'd she say? JB stops sobbing, sits swaying backward and forward, very slightly in his chair. All these years, we could have had children. All these weary, weary years. Hester, what are you talking about? JB, pointing waywardly toward the door to the outside. Just told me. She made it up about the doctor. Made it all up. We could have had 2 kids by now. Looks at David. She wouldn't. She wouldn't. Because I drink, she says. A drunkard, she says. They'll wipe my name off my mailbox like I never lived. Hester. Come upstairs and lie down. You make me so mad I could choke you. You could have everything in the world and you drink it away. JB. If I had a boy, I wouldn't have touched a drop. Hester. Oh, push. She tries to move him to the stairway. JB. I'm only a failure, Dave. The world is full of failures. All a man needs is one mistake, and he's a failure. David turns his head a little annoyed. David, impatiently. I know, John. Looks out window again. JB. You are the only man I ever knew who never makes a mistake. You understand me. Look at me. I'm saying something. David now turns full to him. What are you talking about? JB. I'm not as drunk as I look, David. You're a good man, yes. You know how to do. But you've had a phenomenal lot of luck in your life, Dave. Never play luck too hard. It's like a season. And seasons go away. Hester. Come up or you'll pass away. Enter Pat downstairs with a watch in hand. Pat. My watch says 8:30. Where is he? He told you no later than 8 o'clock, didn't he? David. Which means he's half an hour late. That's what it means, doesn't it? Pat. I don't know what to tell Amos. I made him take another shower. David with growing fear. He pitched the greatest game of his life today. What more does he need to be told? That man'll be here. Pat. Maybe he was kidding us. He looked like he might be that type. David. Are you going to stop that? Pat. And Amos did look a little nervous in the 8th inning with those 2 men on base. David. But they didn't score. Now will you just stop? Pat. Hurt. Looks at him. Then goes to the stairs. Dad, what do you want me to do? I can't grow him in my backyard, can I? Shorey enters pushed by Gus. At the stairs, Pat turns, starts to speak, then goes up and out. Shori, as the door shuts. I'm getting my aches and pains. I came in to say goodnight. Party's breaking up anyway out there. David, no, wait a little. I don't want everybody pulling out. He goes to window as Shori. The man told you 7:30. What do you make him believe he said 8? You told me, as he said, 7:30, didn't you? David, his fury is at the scout. He keeps searching out the window. He could have got a flat, maybe. Shori. It don't take an hour to change a flat, Dave. Dave, tensely. He turns. Don't go away, please. Enter Hester. To Hester. The folks are starting to go. Moving her back to the door. I want a party here when the scout leaves. Keep them here. Hester. It's not the world coming to an end. I don't want you acting this way. It's no fault of yours what happens to him. She grasps him. Why do you act this way? David, I don't get it. I swear to God, I don't get it. Strides to the window. He seems about to burst from the room. Shori. Get what? David. Everything is so hard for him. Turns to them suddenly, unable to down his anxiety. I want to ask you something. All of you. And you too, Hess. You know what I can do and what I can't do. You know me. Everything I touch. Why is it? It turns gold. Everything. Hester. What's come over you? Why? David, with extreme urgency. It bothers me. To all. What is it about me? I never lose. Since we were kids, I expected Amos to rise and shine. He's the one. He knows something. He knows one thing perfect. Why? Is it all luck? Is that what it is? Gus. Nonsense. You're a good man, David. David. Aren't you good? Gus. Yes, but David, then why did your shop fail? Why are you working for me now? He moves as one in the throes of release. Gus. They remember the war here, Dave. They don't like to buy from a foreigner. David. No, that's crazy. Gus. Also, I had a second-rate location. David. Gus, it was better than mine. Every car coming into town had to pass your place, and they came to me. Why is that? Gus. You know an engine, Dave. David. Including Marmon's? To all. I got $14,000 in the bank, and not as much again standing on the ground. Amos? Never had a nickel. Not a bloody nickel. Why? A slight pause. Hester goes to him, smiles to make him smile, but he does not. Why does it bother you? It's good to be lucky, isn't it? David looks at her a moment. Isn't it better to feel that what you have came to you because of something special you can do? Something inside you? Don't you have to know what that thing is? Hester. Don't you know? David. I don't know. Shori. And you'll never know. David. Damn it all. If everything drops on you like fruit from a tree for no reason, why can't it break away for no reason? Everything you have, suddenly. Hester takes David's arm. Come, say goodbye to the folks. David. No, they're not going home till the scout comes. Now go out. Hester shakes his arm. It's his hard luck, not yours. David. It is mine. A man has a right to get what he deserves. He does, damn it. He goes to the window, breaking from her. Hester, angrily. You talk like you'd stole something from him. You never got anything you didn't deserve. You. David, at the end of his patience, he turns on her. Am I that good and he that bad? I can't believe it. There's something wrong. There's something wrong. Suddenly. I'm going to Burley. To Hester hurriedly. Where's the keys to the car? Hester. You don't even know where to find the man. Dave, I'll find him. Where are the keys? Hester, she grabs him. Davy, stop it. David, I'm going. I'll drag him here. Hester, frightened. Davy. He strides toward the door. Shorey grabs his arm and holds it fast. Shorey, stop it. David, let go of me. Shorey, he will not let go. Listen to me, you damn fool. There's nothing you can do, you understand? David, let go of my arm. Shorey forces him down into a chair. David, I'm going to tell you something I never told you before, but you need to know this now. Amos deserves better than this, but I deserved better than this too. Pats his thighs. When I went to France, there was no broken bones in my imagination. I left this town with a beautiful mustache and a full head of hair. Women traveled half the state to climb into my bed. Even over there, under shot and shell, as they say, there was a special star over my head. I was the guy nothing was ever going to hit. And nothing ever did, David. He releases David's arm. Now David does not move away. Right through the war without a scratch. Surprised? I walked into Paris combing my hair. The women were smiling at me from both sides of the street, and I walked up the stairs with the whistles blowing over the armistice. I remember how she took off my shoes and put them under the bed. The next thing I knew, the house was laying on my chest and they were digging me out. David, all stare at him. Hester. Everybody said it was a battle, I thought. Shorey to her. No battle at all. To David. In battle, there's almost a reason for it. A man almost deserves it that way. I just happened to pick out the one woman in Paris who lived in a house where the janitor was out getting drunk on the armistice. He forgot to put water in the furnace boiler. Smiles. The walls blew out. Points upstage with his thumb over his shoulder. Amos's walls happened to blow out. And you happen to be a lucky boy, Brother David. A jellyfish can't swim no matter how he tries. It's the tide that pushes him every time. So just keep feeding and enjoy the water till you're thrown up on the beach to dry. Pause. Hester goes to him. Come, Dave. The folks are waiting to say goodbye. David is forced to turn quickly toward the window. It is an indecisive turn of the head, a questioning turn, and she follows as he strides to the window and looks out toward upstage direction. David. Wait. Starting for the window. A car. Turns quickly to the mall. It didn't go past. It stopped. He starts quickly for the door across the stage. Right. Pat rushes. Pat. He's here. He came. Get out, everybody. To all the way from Burley in a taxi cab. Dave, you stay. I want your advice when he starts talking contract. Pat rushes out. And David, as they all keep exclaiming, okay, out, all of you. As they start for the door, David musses Shorey. Where's your jellyfish now, brother? Shorey, at the door with the others. His luck is with him, sister, that's all. His luck. David, luck, huh? Smiling, he bends over Shorey, pointing left toward his big desk and speaking privately. Someday, remind me to open the middle drawer of that desk. I'll show you a fistful of phone bills for calls to Detroit. Gus, joyously. Dave, you called them. David, sure I called them. That man is here because I brought him here. To Shorey, where's the jellyfish could have done that? Triumphantly to all. Don't anybody go. We're going to raise the roof tonight. They have all gone out now, on his last lines. Only Hester remains in the doorway. David looks at her looks at her a moment and with a laugh embraces her quickly. I'll tell you everything, he says. Hester, be like this all the time, Davy. She turns toward the hallway into which this door leads. Tell me every word now. She goes. David quickly brushes his hair back, looking rapidly about the room and to himself. David. Now it's wonderful. This is how it ought to be. Enter Amos, comes downstairs. Amos, hushed, with his hands clasped as though in prayer. God, it's happening just like it ought to. 'Cause I'm good. I bet you I'm probably great. He says this, facing the door, glancing at David. Enter Augie, Belfast, and Pat. Augie is a big Irishman dressed nattily. Pat, as they enter. Couldn't stop him from setting up a party, sees Dave. Oh, here he is. Augie to Amos and David. Sit down, don't stand on ceremony with me. I'm Augie Belfast. Amos sits on couch, David in a chair as Pat, let me have your coat. Augie lays down his head. It don't bother me. I live in it, thanks just the same. Taking out chewing gum. Gum? David, no, thanks, we've been eating all day. Augie, unfolding a slice as Pat sits. He moves about constantly. He already has a wad of gum in his cheek. Loosen up. Don't stand in awe of me. To David and Amos, I was just telling your father I got tied up in Burley on some long-distance calls. I'm very sorry to be so late. He is anxious to be pardoned. David, oh, that's all right. We know how busy you fellows are. Augie, thanks. I know how you must have been feeling. He paces a little, chewing, looking at the floor. Amos? He says nothing for a long moment. Stops walking, looks down, slowly unfolds another slice of gum. Amos, whisper. Yeah? Augie, Amos? How long you been pitching? Amos. Well, about... Turns to Pat. Pat. Steadily since he's been 9 years old. Augie nods. Pause. I guess you know he's a damn fine pitcher. Pat, comfortably. We like to think so around here. Augie, yeah, he's steady. He's good. Got a nice long arm, no nerves in that arm. He's all right. He feels the plate. All the time thinking of something else, pacing. Pat. Well, you see, I've had him practicing down the cellar against a target. Dug the cellar out deeper so he could have room after he grew so tall. Augie. Yeah, I know. A man sitting next to me this afternoon was telling me. Look, Mr. Beeves. He straddles a chair, folds his arms on its back, facing them. I want you to have confidence in what I say. I'm Augie Belfast. If you know anything about Augie Belfast, you know he don't bull. There's enough heartbreak in this business without bull throwers causing any more. In toto, I don't string an athlete along. Pitching a baseball to me is like playing the piano well or writing beautiful literature. So try to feel I'm giving you the last word because I am. Pat nods a little, hardly breathing. I've watched many thousands of boys, Mr. Beeves. I've been whacking the bushes for material for a long time. You've done a fine job on Amos. He's got a fine, fast ball. He's got a curve that breaks off sharp. He's got his control down to a pinpoint. He's almost original sometimes. When it comes to throwing a ball, he's all there. Now, slight pause. When I saw him 2 years ago, I said, David, electrically, you were here before? Augie, oh yeah, I meant to tell you. I came to see him last year, too. Pat, why didn't you let me know? Augie, because there was one thing I couldn't understand, Mr. Beeves. I understand it today, but I couldn't then. When the bases are clear, Mr. Beeves, and there's nobody on, your boy is terrific. Now, wait a minute. Let me say rather that he's good. Very good. I don't want to say an untruth. Your boy is good when nobody's on. But as soon as a man gets on base and starts rubbing his spikes in the dirt and making noise behind your boy's back, something happens to him. I seen it once. I seen it twice. I seen it every time the bases get loaded. And once the crowd starts howling, your body, Mr. Beeves, is floating somewhere out in paradise. Pat. But he pitched a shutout. Augie. Only because them black giants like to swing bats. If they'd waited him out in the 8th inning, they could have walked in half a dozen runs. Your boy was out of control. Dead silence. I couldn't understand it. I absolutely couldn't get the angle on it. Here's a boy with a terrific, well, let's not say terrific, let's say a damn good long arm, but not an ounce of base brains. There is something in him that prevents him from playing the bases. Pat. I know, I've been drilling him the last 3 years. Augie. I know, but in 3 years there's been no improvement. In fact, this year he's worse in that respect than last year. Why? Today I found the answer. Pat, softly. You did? Augie. The guy sitting next to me mentions about him pitching down the cellar since he was 9 years old. That was it. Follow me now. In the cellar there is no crowd. In the cellar he knows exactly what's behind his back. In the cellar, in toto, your boy is home. He's only got to concentrate on that target. His mind is trained to take in that one object, just the target. But once he gets out on a wide ball field and a crowd is yelling in his ears, and there's 2 or 3 men on bases jumping back and forth behind him, his mind has got to do a lot of things at once. He's in a strange place. He gets panicky. He gets paralyzed. He gets mad at the base runners, and he's through. From that minute, he can't pitch worth a nickel bag of cold peanuts. He gets up, pulls down his vest. David and Pat sit dumbly. Amos staring at nothing. I gotta make a tray, Mr. Beeves. Pat slowly rises, as though in a dream. I didn't want to waste the winters. That's why I trained him down the cellar. Augie thoughtfully. Yeah, that's just where you made your mistake, Mr. Beeves. David rises. But that was his plan. He didn't want to waste the winters. Down the cellar, it seemed like such a good idea. Augie. But it was a mistake. David. He's been doing it 12 years. A man can't be multiplying the same mistake for 12 years, can he? Augie. I guess he can, son. It was a very big mistake. Pause. Pat. Well, you can't take that out of him. Your coaches and everything? Augie. There's no coach in the world can take out of a boy's brain and set it back 12 years. Crippled up here. Taps his temple. I'm convinced. David. But if you coached him right, if you drilled him day after day, Augie, it would take a long, long time. And I personally don't believe he'll ever get rid of it. Pat. You can't try him, eh? Augie, I know how you feel, Mr. Beeves, but I am one man who will not take a boy out of his life when I know in my heart we're going to throw him away like a wet rag. David. For a long time he stands staring. He has no life. Augie bends closer to hear. Eh? David. He doesn't know how to do anything else. Augie nods with sympathy. That was another mistake. He starts to turn away to go. Pat, as though to call him back somehow. I believed if he concentrated. Concentration. You see, I myself always jumped from one thing to another and never got anywhere, and I thought, oh, yeah. When it works, concentration is a very sound principle. Takes a breath. Well, lots of luck. Still unable to believe, Pat can't seek. Pat can't speak. Bye, Amos. Amos nods slightly, not to Dave. Bye. He starts to open the door. David. Look. He hurries to him. He looks in his eyes, his hand raised as though to grab the man and hold him there. Augie, yeah? David starts to speak, then looks at Amos, who is still staring at nothing. David turns back to Augie. David. You'll see him in the leagues. Augie. I hope so. I just don't. David, trying to restrain his fury. No. You'll see him. You're not the only team you know. You'll see him in the leagues. Augie grasps David's arm. Take it easy, boy. To the others. I hope you'll pardon me for being late. David, quietly, like an echo, his voice cracking. You'll see him. Augie nods, glances at Pat and Amos, opens the door, and goes. Pat and David stand looking at the door. Pat turns now, walks slowly to Amos, who is sitting. As Pat nears him, he stands slowly, his fists clenched at his sides. Pat, softly, really questioning. He can be wrong too, can he? Amos is silent, his face filling with hate. Can't he be wrong? No reply. He can, can't he? Amos, a whip-like shout. No, he can't be. Pat, but everybody makes mistakes. Amos, with a cry, he grabs Pat by the collar and shakes him violently back and forth. Mistakes? Mistakes? You and your goddamn mistakes. David leaps to them, trying to break his grip. Let him go. Amos, let him go. Amos, amid his own and Pat's weeping. To Pat, you liar. I'll kill you, you little liar, you liar. With a new burst of violence, he starts forcing Pat backward and down to the floor. Gus comes in as David locks an arm around Amos's neck and jerks him from Pat, who falls to the floor. Leave him alone. Leave him alone. With a great thrust, David throws Amos to the couch and stands over him, fists raised. David. Stay there. Don't get up. You'll fight me, Amos. Pat, scurrying to his feet and taking David away from the couch. Don't fight. He turns quickly, pleadingly to Amos, who is beginning to sob on the couch. Amos. Boy. Amos lies across the couch and sobs violently. Pat leans over and pats his head. Boy. Amos swings his arm out blindly and hits Pat across the chest. David starts toward them, but Pat remains over him, patting his back. Come on, boy, please. Boy, stop now. Stop. Amos? Look, Aim, look. I'll get Cleveland down here. I'll go myself. I'll bring him in. Aim, listen. I did what I could. A man makes mistakes. He can't figure on everything. He begins shaking Amos, who continues sobbing. Aim, stop it. He stands and begins shouting over Amos's sobbing. I admit it, Aim. I lie. I talk too much. I'm a fool. I admit it, but look how you pitch. Give me credit for that. Give me credit for something. Rushes at Amos and turns him over. Stop that cry. God almighty, what do you want me to do? I'm a fool. What can I do? David wrenches Pat away from the couch. Stands over Amos. Listen, you. Leans over and pulls Amos by the collar to a sitting position. Amos sits limply, sobbing. He made a mistake. That's over with. You're gonna drill on bass play. You got a whole life. One mistake can't ruin a life. He'll go to Cleveland. I'll send him to New York. Hester enters quietly. The man can be wrong. Look at me. The man can be wrong, you understand. Amos shakes his head. Amos. He's right. David releases him and stands looking down at him. Amos gets up slowly, goes to chair and sits. He's right. I always knew I couldn't play the basses. Everything the man said was right. I'm dumb. That's why. I can't figure nothing. Looks up at Pat. There wasn't no time, he said. No time for nothing but throwing that ball. Let him laugh, he said. You don't need to know how to figure. He knew it all. He knows everything. Well, this is one time I know something. I ain't gonna touch a baseball again as long as I live. Pat, frantically. Amos, you don't know what you're saying. Amos, I could never stand out on a diamond again. I can't do it. I know, I can't. Slight pause. I ain't gonna let you kid me anymore. I'm through. He rises. Pat sobs into his hands. David. Amos keeps shaking his head in denial of everything. What do you mean, through? Amos, you can't lay down. Listen to me. Stop shaking your head. Who gets what he wants in this world? Amos, suddenly. You. Only you. David. Me? Don't believe it, Amos. And grabs him. Don't believe that anymore. Amos. Everything you ever wanted in your whole life. David, including my children name? Silence. Where are my children? Hester. Dave. David to Hester. I want to tell him. To Amos. What good is everything when nothing is good without children? Do you know the laughingstock it makes of everything you do in the world? You'll never meet a man who doesn't carry one curse. At least one. Shorey, JB, Pop, you, and me too. Me as much as anybody. Hester. Don't, Davy. David with a dreadful triumph. No, Hess, I'm not afraid of it anymore. I want it out. I was always afraid I was something special in the world, but not after this. To Amos. Nobody escapes, Aim. But I don't lay down. I don't die because I'll have no kids. A man is born with one curse at least to be cracked over his head. I see it now, and you got to see it. Don't envy me, Aim. We're the same now. The world is made that way, as if a law was written in the sky somewhere. Nobody escapes. Takes Amos's hand. Hester, almost weeping, she cannot restrain. Why do you talk that way? David. Hess, the truth. Hester, it's not the truth. You have no curse, none at all. David, struck. What? Hester. I wanted to wait till the scouts signed him up. And then, when the house was full of noise and cheering, I'd stand with you on the stairs, high over them all, and tell them you were going to have a child. With anger and disappointment and grief. Oh, Davy, I saw you so proud. David, twisted and wrecked, he bursts out. Oh, Hess, I am. Hester. No, you don't want it. I don't know what's happened to you. You don't want it now. David, with a chill of horror freezing him. Don't say that. Hester, you mustn't. David tries to draw her to him, Hester holding him away. You've got to want it, Davy. You've just got to want it. She bursts into tears and rushes out. He starts after her, calling her name, when he finds himself facing Amos. Amos. Nobody escapes. David stops, turns to Amos. Except you. He walks to the door past David and goes out. Curtain.